Mr. Mayor, we can't hear anything. I'm not sure if we're meant to be able to, but we can't.
What's happened, Anthony, and I'm not going to read all this again, but it appears as if the live streaming's not working.
Oh,
Thomas wasn't pedalling fast enough.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, funny, ha. When did it stop, or did it never start? Beg your pardon?
We're on live streaming now.
Right now. Well, we're back. My apologies to those who may be listening. We've had a hiccup with our live streaming, but we are now back online. So at item 1.4 is confirmation of minutes, so that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting of 25 August 2020 be confirmed. Could I have somebody to move that, please? Councillor Rotino. Councillor Reeves has seconded it. Thank you, councillors. So all those in favour of accepting the minutes of the last meeting? That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Our next ordinary council meeting will be on the 15th of September to be held at the Corporate Centre at 273 Main Street, Bensdale, commencing at 6 p.m. Mr. CEO, at 1.6, do we have any requests for leave of absence?
No, we do not, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. How about at 1.7, requests to speak to your community project?
No, there are no requests, Mr. Mayor.
And at 1.8, public question time.
I haven't been provided with any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So that moves us to 1.9.1, which is Assembly of Councillors through July and August 2020. So, councillors, you would have read this executive summary, so are you somebody like to move that the Assembly of Councillors be accepted? Councillor Rotino and Councillor Buckley has seconded that. So, councillors, all those in favour? Thank you. That is unanimous also. One 1.10.1. This is for those who are online. This is where our CEO has declared a conflict of interest. So, Mr. Bathford, could we see you just leave the screen, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And our IT will let you know when it's time to come back. All right, thank you. So this is a planning application for duplexes in Glendon Drive, Eastwood, and would you like to speak to it first, Mr. Cannizzaro?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, this is a petition that councillors received. It's informing council that we've received the petition on a planning application for duplexes in Glendon Drive, Eastwood. So there have been and the lead petitioner is Mr. Wayne Stagg on behalf of residents at Eastwood, and contained within the petitions is 170 signatures, and the report is self-explanatory. I'll take the report as read, but officers are recommending that council receive the petition lodged by Mr. Wayne Stagg on behalf of the residents at Eastwood. And also note that the matter is listed for consideration in tonight's meeting and forms part of the Planning Officer's report at item number 5.1.2. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Cannizzaro. So, it's been, so we've had this accepting this petition moved by Councillor Toohey and seconded by Councillor Reeves. Thank you, councillors. So, all those in favour of accepting the petition? Sorry, I'm humble apologies. Yes, would.
No. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I don't need to speak to it. Well, I think we'll have plenty of time to speak to it later on. Thank you.
I will say just a couple of words and to thank Mr. Stagg for the petition and the effort that he's gone to help inform councillors of the depth and understand the feeling around this particular matter in Glendon Drive.
Councillor Phelps, do you wish to speak?
Thank you. I would like to say it's not an easy task to get the attention of council, let alone the state government, on such a big issue which affects our community. And the bottom line for us, it's been a difficult chore for the staff to go against state government and ministerial wishes, and this receiving of this petition is actually substance that aids the council in being able to portray the community's wishes, but it's a very good means of making sure that that is heard from the ground up, from grassroots up to the minister's ears. So I really thank Mr Stagg and his colleagues in delivering this and making the effort to be able to produce the petition, which is a vital document in helping council be able to push this in favour of the direction that you wish. So thank you very much to everyone who's participated.
Thank you, Councillor Peltz. Would anyone else wish to speak? I see the online, the shake of the head. So, councillors, all those in favour of accepting the petition? Thank you. That's unanimous. So we'll have to wait for our CEO to return. Mr CEO, are there any notices of motion and or rescission?
Through you, Mr Mayor, no, I've not received any for this meeting.
Thank you for that. Now, we had deferred business, which was our councillor and delegate reports at the last meeting, which is item 3.1. Item 4 is councillor and delegate reports. So I would like to, or I intend to join those two together as we go around the room, that the deferred reports and, of course, just this last recent week as combined in your reports to council. Thank you. I might start with Councillor Ellis, if he's ready.
Well, thanks, Mr Mayor. I've prepared a fairly lengthy report, so I shan't bother with going through it at the moment. Just to mention that one of the highlights was meeting with the the State Architects Advisory Panel in relation to the Jimmy's Point development. I was honoured to have been allowed by the chairman of that panel to address the panel in relation to the emphasis of and importance of Jimmy's Point to our community and to us as a council. I brought to their attention the importance to our early pioneers in the region, to our fishing industry, and later, more latterly, to the oil industry in our region. A fact that they weren't familiar with, nor in fact was our council architect. So it was important that that was passed on. I look forward to feedback as we develop the council's ambition to make a real wow factor and something spectacular on Jimmy's Point. I'll refer councillors to my report as submitted later. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Councillor O'Connell.
Thanks. I too submitted my report, but just a couple of things. We've had a busy last month attending meetings in relation to the CEO Performance and Remuneration Committee, also attending weekly Omeo mountain bike meetings in relation to the marketing and branding and other ancillary activities. And then the last thing I'd like to do is acknowledge the 3 grade 6 students from Omeo Primary School who were watching last week's meeting via live stream to complete part of their Junior Rotary Award. I know they were chuffed to hear their names being mentioned, and they were also really interested to understand the workings of council. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor O'Connell. So, Councillor Toohey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have sent in a report to staff, but probably the one thing from the last couple of weeks that I would like to mention is the petition that we've just spoken of, and the work that Mr Wayne Stagg has put into to putting that petition together and getting around the community. People may or may not know that I do live in Eastwood. I'm a distance from Glendon Drive, and it is a fairly mammoth task to get something like that together, and to get people and speak to people about signing it, and there has been well over 100 signatures on there. He also sent the same or a similar petition to our local state member. So I'd like to congratulate Wayne on getting that together and getting that to us. So that's my report for the month. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Toohey. Councillor Rotino.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, out of the report that I submitted this month, I only want to talk about one thing, and that's in relation to all our committees that all the councillors are represented on. They're all sort of coming to an end for this councillor term, and we had in August our last Economic Development Advisory Committee meeting, and one of the really important things that came out of that was a piece of work that committee's been doing with the Boston Consulting Group. Now, initially the group was focusing on the Black Summer bushfires and recovery from that tragic event, but more recently that's morphed into a recovery post that and post COVID-19, what sort of activities will help get our economy going again, plus with some of the transitioning primary industries as well. So it's a really important piece of work, and there'll be a series of recommendations that will come to the council as recommendations to look at adopting and help put us on the path to recovery. So that's all. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rotino. Councillor Reeves.
Oh, thanks, Mayor, and good evening, councillors and anybody who is watching tonight. It's been 5 months since I've been in the chamber. It's been extraordinary to be a councillor at the other end where Councillor Alison O'Connell are at the moment. And it has been 5 months since I've been to Bairnsdale. It really has been a Marlow and East Gippsland COVID bubble that we've been trapped in. There's only one really important piece of news that I really want to share. It was on the front page of the Snowy River Mail last week, but I want to add a little bit more depth to it. And that is a state government announcement in a suite of grants in bushfire recovery and economic development, around 7.15 million that was committed to Cape Conran and the betterment of the facilities at Cape Conran National Park. Now, to add some more information to that, councillors, Parks Victoria are spending $6 or more million on improvements and repairs within the park, but this 7.15 million connects Cape Conran to Marlow and Orbost with fresh water and sewer, and along that line will be a bike path. So you'll be able to eventually ride from... Now, we need to get some more clarity around this, because there's been a little bit of discrepancy around whether this money includes the development from Marlow to Orbost. But we're hoping to be able to use this as a bit of leverage to get some federal government money as well, and to complete a bike path from Orbost to Marlow to Cape Conran, and also to have fresh water, potable water and sewer to Cape Conran, with a view to Cape Conran having improved facilities, something like is down at Wilson's Prom. So there'll be a range of accommodation options. This is a real game changer for our area that's really struggled and been battered by fires and COVID. To have this is a 2-year project, about a year of planning and preparation and scoping, and then a year of construction. So I just want to acknowledge that, councillors, that this is a good piece of news that has really buoyed our local community, and something that I know our Orbost Chamber of Commerce has really been pushing for, and I congratulate them and that group of people for the work they've done. Thanks, councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Things have been pretty quiet up our way, and people haven't been, they've been obliging the lockdown things pretty well. But the farmers are getting about their business, and we've had a bit of rain, and we'll be looking forward to a far better future. So thank you, Mr Mayor. That's all I have to report.
That's the way to be. Always look forward. Councillor Peltz.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Our face coverings tonight are not part of our fancy dress theme. They are state government law in the prevention of spreading the COVID-19 virus, which is mandatory. Face masks must be worn in the state of Victoria when you leave home, when you leave your premises and you're out in a public space. On the 13th and 14th of August, the seats held its AGM in its first online Skype meeting, which was hosted by Wellington Shire. This went very well, and the good preparation of our Executive Officer, Andrew Martin, managed to make it a success. In the seats constitution, Victoria and New South Wales alternate 2 yearly the chair position, so as to have a fair representation. I've had the privilege and proudly being the chair which was leaving the position, and the current chair, I'm pleased to say, is the Honourable Patricia White, who has been a mayor and a deputy mayor and very active in the Shoalhaven region. And Patricia and I have worked extensively well together, and I know she'll do a really good job of chairing the seats group. Not to say that we won't be represented in the region, because Keith Cook from Baw Baw is now the deputy chair of the seats group, so we have a local representative still, which is fantastic. And Keith comes to us with a vast knowledge of VicRail experience as he worked there, and he understands the signalling issues for the Gippsland region train line. We look forward to some great work evolving in this space in the future with regards to the Gippsland Rail Connect commuters line shortly. So that's really pleasing that Keith's obviously putting his hand up for the next council term, and I'm really proud to say he's going to do a great job as a deputy chair, and I look forward to him fulfilling his role if he wants to move on to the chair next time round. So Seats has been a group I've been involved with for the past 12 years of my term on council, and I've found it very active, progressive and rewarding on many levels. The amount of money this group has advocated for in the past 12 years for infrastructure and safety improvements is in the hundreds of millions of dollars, which we, the road users now, are privileged to be using. Whilst I will not be standing for council this time round, I will still be privately a member of this group, as I feel it really contributes to safety upgrades and better road improvements to our region. And I've been elected onto the executive group, which I can still retain post-council. Rural Council on the next level has been lobbying politicians in the best interests of rural councils' needs, specifically in regards to cross-border issues for all our bordering councils. And hopefully some common sense solutions will be put in place shortly. Unemployment figures due to COVID-19 pandemic are hitting hard, are now being realised in our state of Victoria, with many businesses realising they can no longer sustain the pandemic roller coaster. It's saddening to see some long-term businesses, and I know of friends who have been employed by the likes of Canon, a big multinational company, has closed its doors only yesterday to put off many staff and people who have been employed, my friend, 34 years. So this is sad to see that these big companies are getting pushed to this limit, that they can no longer stay open. A members alert was sent out early this week promoting the community engagement toolkit for rural councils, and it's now up on the website for viewing. and so is the Population Attraction and Retention Toolkit. And I think these are really two tools worth looking at and comparing our policies with them, and also seeing of what use they could be to our council and best practice. They were reports that were put out and seriously funded by state government, and they are in the best interest of all rural councils, if not all councils, to use and to be able to take best practice guidelines on them. So have a look at those two, please. A letter was sent to the Victorian Ombudsman regarding the scope and timing issues relating to the investigation into council's response to financial hardships. And this is something that is prevalent with all councils, and you know, it's something that we need to be aware of. And with that said, it's probably the basis of my report of the main issues. So that completes my report, and it will be emailed in. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Peltz. With mine, I could say it's been meeting after meeting after meeting, but I won't bore you with all those things. But as Councillor Rotino alluded to in his report, it has come to a close almost, this 4-year council term, and I took great pride in chairing the last East Gippsland Shire Council's Livestock Exchange Committee meeting, for which you know, we'd had a great association over this 4-year period. And I'd just like to say that from the beginning of that to the end has seen a transformation in the way the committee's performed and the allegiances between different bodies who are associated with it. And also for those who might be interested, because of course agriculture is my passion, to actually see the upgrades that have been made over the 4 years to those facilities there. They are really first class, and puts the council in a great position to you know, supply these first class facilities, which will attract more and more business. So it was a bit sad to say goodbye to them, but you know, that committee will go on in the next council, and hopefully you know, they get the similar results. I meet fairly regularly with upper house member for this area, which is Jane Garrett, who continually catches up with us to see how we're going in regards to our recovery, and of course with the COVID now. In fact, the last meeting we caught her in the park having a brisk walk with her mask on, and being watched by or surveilled by army officers as she stopped to talk to us for the catch-up. But what she's done has been great work. She's caring for us, and at the same time taking any of our concerns to the Cabinet and securing some pretty good results for us. So it's really nice to know that we have somebody in government that's looking out for us. I know we have others, but Jane's just personally doing this off her own, from her own fruition. So, which is similar to catching up regularly with Senator Bridget McKenzie, who has been very concerned because she actually lives in a border town in Victoria. She's very concerned about the cross-border problems, and so in her catching up, she takes that straight back to the federal government, and of course talks to the cross-border commissioners, etc. But she talks to all the mayors on the Victorian border, and to see how things are going, and as a result of that, we are starting to see progress in the border situation to the better. In other words, I think it's been announced that we now have a 50-kilometre buffer zone or bubble, which is much more workable than the 2K. So this is some really good work done in that field, and also our collaboration with the Canberra region and the South Coast Shires. The same thing has happened there with they've been advocating in the same area about keeping us connected and trying to erase that line that says it's the border, because we are one country, and it's just it's caused complications. So you know, we've had our One Gippsland meetings regularly, and there's a timber task force set up at the moment to try and work our way through the crisis in the timber industry. So that is about it. Although just very recently, in fact last Friday, we caught up with Telstra's Regional Australia organisation to do a post-bushfire incident review. And everybody, when we got around the Shire, communications was one of the top on the list that had gone, and people were so worried about it. And of course Telstra are certainly working towards making it better, because there will be a next time. We don't know when, but there will be. But the thing that was striking about that was that their failure was 90% caused by a lack of electricity. So Telstra didn't fail. They failed to get the energy to run their towers. So people perhaps lose sight of that and just say, oh, it's all Telstra's fault. But in fact, 90% of their failure was due to lack of electricity. So, and they showed us some pictures of the generators. One burnt to a cinder. They put it in place after the fire went past the tower, got the tower up working with a dirty big generator, only to have the wind change, and it brought the fire back and burnt their massive generators. So it wasn't as if they didn't try, and they just were like everybody else, were probably caught in a bad place. So anyway, that's the end of my report. Thank you, and that moves us along now to 5.1.1. Now this is where Councillor Rotino has officially declared a conflict of interest. So thank you, Councillor Rotino. He will leave the chamber for the duration of this report. So I know Tom will speak to this, but Ms Weigel, would you like to introduce Tom Weatherall on this item on the Bullock Island Master Plan?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think Tom is well known to councillors and across this issue, so I will just hand directly across to Tom to take you through the report. Thank you.
And welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and good evening, councillors. The purpose of this report is to present to council an addendum to the Bullock Island Master Plan, which was developed and adopted in 2015. The addendum builds on the existing master plan to reflect the current plans of all stakeholders on the island, and maintains the objective to enhance the visitor experience, maximise visitation and contribute to the visitor economy of Lakes Entrance and the broader region. Much of the original master plan is considered sound, and officers have been mindful that its development was heavily based on comprehensive and successful stakeholder and community engagement. In refreshing the master plan with this addendum, it's been a focus not to deviate far from the original plan. The need to refresh the Bullock Island Master Plan with this addendum is driven by a number of key recent developments, and they include the announcement of significant funding for improvements to Bullock Island public open spaces, which are now managed largely by Council following agreement to become the Crown Land Committee of Management in 2019. Further to this, there's been funding for the development of the Lakes Entrance Fishing Limited Fish Cafe, and other funding announcements, including an allocation for improvements to the Reeves Jetty. With the recent allocated funding, the fundamental elements of this revised or refreshed master plan can be realised in the immediate future, within the next couple of years. The master plan refresh has been developed in consultation with a reference group, and that's comprised land managers on the island, community stakeholders, funding partners and relevant government agencies. Just a brief summary of some of the key changes that have been detailed in the addendum document, which include the inclusion of 2 public toilets, removal of the loop road that was in proximity to the Bullock Island Bridge, and that's to better incorporate some of those new commercial ideas. It identifies a bridge upgrade, the new fish cafe, the extension to Reefs Jetty, and other proposed boardwalks and seawall fishing areas. It also includes cultural interpretive elements. As part of drafting the addendum, a range of discussions have been held with tourism operators, visitors, representatives from the fishing industry, community members, and of course a reference group. The draft addendum to the Bullock Island Master Plan was made available to the community earlier in August, on the 10th of August, and that was via Council's website and via articles that were picked up in local newspapers. Conversation is continuing with a number of stakeholders around potential future works in later stages beyond the fundamental elements that are currently identified within the Master Plan addendum. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Tom. Councillors, do you have any questions regarding this Master Plan? Seems like you've done a thorough job. Everybody's right across this, so no questions.
I'm happy to move the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Good, thank you, Councillor Ellis, and that's seconded by Councillor Peltz. So would you like to speak to this, please, Councillor Ellis?
This is a more formalised adoption in the sense of the Bullock Island work that we started some time back. It places the project into three spectrums: the Bullock Island Bridge leading to the island, and I recently identified works need, the ambitions of Leffel, or the Fisherman's Co-op, and the new restaurant or fish and chip restaurant, and of course Council's responsibility in the passive recreational groups. It's been pleasing to see members of the community taking an interest in the work that Council's about to undertake on this project, and it's helpful that we had a bureaucratic advisory group to be able to assist us in producing this addendum. That the island now has a future and has cleared areas available for the growth as identified in the addendum for visitor entertainment and growth, and an improvement to our economy in Lakes Entrance, all makes this a worthwhile project. I look forward to working cooperatively with the other authorities as East Gippsland Shire Council as land managers of the passive recreational areas. I commend the recommendation to Council.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Councillor Peltz, you'd wish to speak also?
Yes, thank you. Look, originally I was not in support of this because I felt that it was a legacy to council in regards to some of the infrastructure that was getting thrown at us. And I foresee that the vision of the master plan has highlighted the specific areas that council will be in control of, and I think this has a really good future and a really great iconic spot for Lakes Entrance to have many tourist attractions and to build on that as an attraction. I have to say, driving through Lakes Entrance recently, I had to say that Lakes was looking fantastic, and I think the works that Vic Roads has done with the streetscape upgrading in conjunction to East Gippsland Shire Council has been a really good progress, and I think Lakes is looking really fresh and really inviting, and to be able to do some work around this Bullock Island area is something that the community has wanted for the last 12 years that I know that I've been on council, and we've always been dubious because it was under the control of DELP, but a joint venture is always a good prospect, as you can see by the streetscape that's happened with Vic Road. So credit to our staff for being involved in this, and they've got the reputation of achieving. So I look forward to seeing this develop into a really great community space. So thank you, Tom and Fiona, for your work in this.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Reeves, speaking for this proposal.
Thanks, Mayor and councillors, and to the good burgers of Lakes Entrance and surrounds. This is a great piece of work. However, I'm always interested in implementation strategies. Plans are terrific, but how does the rubber hit the road? And the good thing to note in this report is that this plan doesn't generate a financial obligation for us, but it does identify a range of infrastructure improvements and other initiatives requiring investment. And these recommendations will be considered in the preparation of the annual budget in future and subject to the normal budget considerations. That's good. What I also point out is approximately, as noted in the report, 6.875 million is currently committed to these projects. And in the addendum to the master plan by external sources. And provision for further upgrades to Bullock Island are also made in the 2021 council budget. But the other good thing about this, though, councillors, is we often talk about having shovel-ready projects so that we're ready to go when funding opportunities arrive. And this addendum could also be used to seek those additional funds to implement the remainder of the master plan. So it's a great thing to have there ready for us to go, councillors, and for the next council.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Any other councillors wish to speak for or against? No. All right, I think we can just put this to the vote. So all those in favour of accepting this master plan? Good. For the 7 of us here, that's also unanimous. And could somebody please let Councillor Rotino know that the item is finished? And while we're waiting for him to come back, I could announce that 5.1.2 is the actual planning permit application for Glendon Drive. So again, we would bid farewell to our CEO. Would that be correct?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just like to declare an indirect conflict of interest due to my proximity to the development that is before council tonight. So I'll see you after this.
Thank you very much for that. Welcome back, Councillor Rotino. So as I said, this is item 5.1.2, which is a planning permit application at Glendon Drive Eastwood for 8 applications relating to 8 lots, each proposal being for development of 2 dwellings on a lot. So this is endorsed by Ms Pitkin and authored by Ms Reynolds, who will probably speak. But Ms Pitkin, would you like to begin, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As was the case with the previous author, the councillors will be very familiar with Nicole Reynolds. She has worked really hard on this report, so I'd like to ask her to speak to it, please.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms Reynolds.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor, councillors and members of the ELT. Tonight I'd like to present to you for consideration present to you a council report for council's determination on 8 planning permit applications as listed in the recommendation pertaining to land at Glendon Drive Eastwood. The planning permit applications have been subject to public notice and have received a significant number of written objections. A planning consultation meeting has been conducted on the 21st of July 2020. The officer's recommendation before you this evening is to issue a notice of decision to grant a permit for 2 of the sites at 18 and number 14 Glendon Drive with conditions. The officer's recommendation is also to issue a notice of decision to refuse to grant a permit on 6 of the applications at 6 sites, being at 4, 5, 17, 13, 12 and 16 Glendon Drive. There are 4 grounds of refusal forming part of the officer's recommendation. These grounds refer to that the applications are inconsistent with the planning policy framework found at clause 1601-1S and 1601-4S, that the applications are inconsistent with the objective and the guidelines of the general residential zone by resulting in a cumulative built form which does not respect neighbourhood character of the area. That the applications will result in a development which is inconsistent with the existing neighbourhood character of the area and is contrary to Standard B1 of Clause 55 of the East Gippsland Planning Scheme. And finally, that the proposed developments do not result in the proper or orderly planning of the area. The recommendation also seeks endorsement of correspondence that has been previously forwarded to the Minister for Planning, which rejects the need for intervention by the Building Victoria's Recovery Task Force, reaffirms Council's position as the relevant decision maker, and does not provide support for a planning scheme amendment which proposes the use of the specific controls overlays to the subject pieces of land in question. The relevant sections of the planning policy framework which we have cited seek to provide for a mix of private, affordable and social housing in suburbs and activity centres. The key elements of the development of the 2 dwellings on each of the 8 sites in close proximity to one another has a detrimental impact on the prevailing neighbourhood character of the area. 5 options have been considered by officers, and the preferred option presented this evening is option A, which forms the basis of our recommendation to you. The approval of the 2 development applications achieves the following. Officers have considered the streetscape and a potential amenity impact to the private landowners. The 2 development application will have the least impact on private landowners. 8 Glendon Drive is the largest allotment, includes a double width carport and appropriate setbacks, and allows for appropriate off-street setbacks. The allotment is also bordered by a public reserve to the south and west. 14 Glendon Drive maintains appropriate separation from 8 Glendon Drive. On balance, the proposed recommendation before you is considered to appropriately facilitate the development of social housing for the community and achieves the orderly and proper planning for the residential area. It is noticed that on August 22nd, Council received a petition regarding the proposals. The signatures included current objectors and additional signatures not as registered objectors. The petition requests that Council all should vote against the proposal in its present format. It is officers' position that we consider that the recommendations before you this evening and presented in this report to Council adequately address the concerns raised in the petition. It is understood that additional petitioners have received in relation to this matter subsequent to the finalisation of this report presented this evening. The recommendation before Council is consistent with key strategies contained in the Council plan relating to advancing planning that provides community members and landowners with certainty about the way land should be used and developed in our towns. It is with respect that we request Council to consider the key planning merits as outlined in this report and resolve to issue 2 notices of decision to grant a permit with condition, and resolve to issue 6 notices of decision to refuse to grant a permit on the land as described in the recommendation. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Nicole. That's very concise, and it's you have put an enormous amount of work into this proposal, so well done. And the first question is from Councillor Buckley.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, Nicole, who is the actual applicant? What authority is applying for this permit?
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. The applicant is the Officer of Housing, the Department of Health and Human Services.
And would they be very similar to the authority that was applied for permits to build that development up at the end of Dreverman Street near the Goodman Park some years ago, maybe 16 years ago? They are similar. Are you aware of that, what I'm talking about? There was a development there to do with social housing. off Dreverman Street near Brett Street.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. I am aware of the application in Dreverman Street. I cannot recall who the applicant was in that case.
No, all right. No, it concerns me a little bit because there was a similar situation here. I'm making a statement now, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor. There was a very similar situation to do with social housing, and a lot of pressure put on council to prevent the development and not to approve it, you see. And anyway, it went ahead, and the vote was strongly in favour of preventing the development from happening, even though council had recommended it had. And anyway, it finished up in VCAT, of course, where the applicant lodged an application, and it only took about 10 minutes for VCAT to decide in favour of the applicant, and not support the council. And it cost, of course, these things going to VCAT cost the ratepayers a fair bit of money because you have to have lawyers and advisors and such. And I can see this one being very similar, with the strong objections to it, to do with the social housing part of it, more so than the actual design of the buildings and so forth. And I think the council will probably vote, against the applicant. Well, they have, except in 2 cases. Well, we haven't yet, but there's only 2 there for approval. And I'm just fearful that we'll go through the same exercise again. So I'd like you to consider that. I don't know how we can sort of get out of it. But anyway, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Now, Councillor Peltz, you've put your hand up with a question.
Yes, if I may, Nicole, I'm just wishing for you to expand on dot point 9 in the recommendations, where it states about the Minister for Planning at Appendix 4 in relation to the request for position by Minister for Planning in reference to the Building Victoria Task Act for fast-tracking planning approvals, opposing a planning scheme amendment which disposes to apply specific controls over clause 45.12, utilising section 20(4) of the Planning and Environment Act. Can you just expand on that, just for the general knowledge of this particular council?
Sure, thank you, Councillor Peltz. Recommendation 9 relates to endorsement of correspondence that has previously been forwarded to the Minister of Planning, and it relates to the Building Victoria's Recovery Task Force, wherein a request was in relation to a potential to have the applications considered by the Minister. In doing so, the correspondence requests Council's position in relation to doing so, and also with respect to the placement by a planning scheme amendment of a special controls overlay. And the clause referred to at 20 Part 4 is a planning scheme amendment that would be advanced by the Minister on the land without subject to public notice. So our correspondence that forms part of the attachment disagrees with the Minister for Planning's proposal to use a planning scheme amendment, reaffirms Council as the relevant decision maker, and also reaffirms our position in relation to Council's, the community position and the written objections. As part of our response to the Minister, we were also able and asked for copies of the written objections that have been received from the community. Thank you, Councillor.
Oh, thank you, Ms Reynolds. And are you just able to briefly highlight the specific reasoning as to why this recommendation has been granted? I mean, there must be just a brief outline stating as to why we don't actually recommend this particular permit or planning development.
Certainly, Councillor Peltz. Thank you for your question. The grounds of refusal, it is our position and an officer's recommendation that we believe that the cumulative impact of the 8 applications, which will result in 16 dwellings at the location in the one street in close proximity to one another, is inconsistent with planning policy at the state level with respect to integrated housing objectives and the planning policy framework relating to housing affordability. We have also, at officer level, made a recommendation to you that the cumulative impact of the construction of 16 dwellings at the location is inconsistent with the element of the general residential zone by resulting in a cumulative built form which does not respect the prevailing character of the street or the area and the precinct of the Eastwood residential estate. The third ground refers to specifically the clause 55, which relates to the development of more than one dwelling. It is our position that we have formed in our recommendation this evening before you that the cumulative impact, again, of the 16 dwellings as proposed at the location is inconsistent with the existing neighbourhood character of the street and the area. And the final ground is officers are recommending is that the cumulative and combined impact of the 16 dwellings as proposed is not consistent with the proper or orderly planning of the area. Thank you for your question.
Thank you of the state guidelines as they are in place today. Thank you. It's a very good recommendation.
Any other questions to Ms Reynolds, councillors?
May I have another quick one, please, Mr Mayor?
Yes, councillor. A question?
Yeah, question.
Good.
Is it usual to have an approval, a recommendation for approval and a recommendation for refusal in the same bill? Well,
thank you.
It's not okay. Well, it makes it a bit difficult, doesn't it, to vote on? Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Go ahead, Ms Reynolds.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. The recommendation before you in this council report is for 8 separate planning applications, of which there are 8 separate recommendations from 1 to 8. On each of the applications as listed, the application specifically to the planning permit application and to the street address, there are 8 individual recommendations which relate to those planning applications. The 9th recommendation is in relation to the endorsement of the letter or the correspondence to the Minister for Planning. So just to reaffirm, there are 8 individual recommendations for the 8 individual planning permit applications.
And do we need to vote separately on each one?
No, Councillor Buckley.
With one overall vote. Okay. Well, I'm afraid I can't support that. That seems way out, but anyway.
Don't start. Thank you, Councillor Peltz. It's moved by Councillor Peltz and seconded by Councillor Toohey.
Mr Mayor, if you have a motion on the table now, I'd like to move an amendment that I believe enhances the motion, if you'd give me the liberty to read it out.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr Mayor, it would become point 10 in the recommendation before you, and it would read, the council requests the Chief Executive Officer to work closely with the appropriate members of the Department of Health and Human Services to develop a plan that meets community need and addresses the broader issue of social housing needs in East Gippsland.
Right, thank you, Councillor Turner. Councillor Reeves. Now we would we'll go back to.
If it was wishing to be added to the motion, are we able to put it up on the screen, because it's difficult to adhere to with it just coming through on an email about 5 minutes before we came to council. So wondering whether our IT staff can put it up online, please.
So, okay, so we have that up on the screen, and Councillor Peltz, you've had a good read of it. And Councillor Toohey, are you happy to accept this additional point number 10 to go with the...
That's you,
I just would like to hear if everyone's happy to add that to the motion, because I'm happy to if we have majority census around the table.
Mr Mayor, I'll just bring it to your attention. I don't know about Councillor O'Connell, but I can't see this amendment. You're talking about a screen, but I don't think we can see it.
Was it sent to Councillor
I've seen it on my email. Yep.
It's in an email. It's in an email, is it?
Yeah, just...
Yeah, I'll give you a moment to see if you can find that, Councillor Ellis.
8 minutes before the meeting started. 8
minutes?
8 minutes. 8:52. Or 5:52, I mean.
Ah.
Well, that can happen too. We've got to make this the last of this stuff.
This, I thought we agreed we wouldn't be doing this.
Well, we did. And by his lordship, who actually said we wouldn't be doing this, he's delivered it. Policy on the run. It's not good practice.
I was just giving Councillor Ellis a moment to read the alteration to the amendment.
I've read it. I take it. Council requests the Chief Executive Officer to work closely with appropriate members of the Department of Health and Human Services to develop a plan that meets community need and addresses the broader issue of social housing needs in East Gippsland. All right, I've read that as the amendment, Mr Mayor. Thank you. I am a bit taken back. It's on the run, this.
So it's actually up to now to Councillor Peltz and Councillor Toohey if they're prepared to accept.
I wouldn't.
Mr Mayor, I have asked, is there support for this agreement, this late arrival to our table amongst the peers, amongst my councillor colleagues? So if they could actually just say yes or no, or show hands that
Well, we could do a show of hands
for
if the people, if the council is prepared. We could just do it as a show of hands if you are in support.
Yeah, just in regards to, you either want it or you don't.
So it's...
Do you want it in or not?
Yeah, it's not required. It's just do you accept it as yourself? You're happy with the...
No worries.
All right.
So what's the outcome? We can't see, Mr Mayor. I can only see the back of your head. So.
Well, you should feel privileged.
I do indeed. But seriously,
Councillor Peltz and Councillor Toohey have accepted this this item 10.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, I haven't formally accepted it. I was looking for support around the table and they're not prepared to show me, so I'm not prepared to accept it as an addition. You're saying it's not appropriate, so I will say no, I won't be accepting this as an addition to the motion. Because it's late, we haven't had time to discuss it. There could have been word tweaking and there's not full support around the table of it. So I'm sorry, Councillor Ratina, I'm not prepared to support it as an addition to the amendments.
That's okay. I've moved it as an amendment, Mr Mayor. It doesn't change the character of the motion. I've put the amendment. It's been seconded. I think it's time to debate it.
Point of order, thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a right to speak against it and you haven't asked me to. The amendment, yeah.
No one's spoken for it yet. We've only just got to the stage, that stage, so yes.
Thank you.
Yes. So, Councillor Rattino.
Mr Mayor, thank you. The amendment is purely to ensure that the Minister and Department of Health and Human Services and our community, from the feedback that we've all had, this is not a social housing issue. It's about the type of development. We've had our planning officer tell us it's about the neighbourhood character, it's about the orderly and proper planning, and I think this amendment enhances a very strong message that we want the investment in social housing in East Gippsland. In fact, if you want to go and have a look at the ABS statistics for disadvantage, you'll find that East Gippsland as a local government area ranks amongst the worst for disadvantage, and the main indicator of disadvantage is weekly earnings, average weekly earnings. So there is a need for social housing. By putting this amendment in as part of the recommendation and motion, it sends a strong message that this is not about social housing. We want the social housing, but we want appropriate development in an orderly way. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rattino. Councillor Reeves, you'd like to speak?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor and councillors. Look, this is an appropriate amendment in addition to add to this. The recommendation is based purely on planning grounds, and I respect that, and I think that's very powerful and very important, especially to the matters that Councillor Buckley was alluding to and his concerns for. But we know from the petitioners and the objectors that they have a concern for social housing as well. So we need to also advocate on behalf of the whole community who also have that concern for social housing and engage with the Department of Health and Human Services as a shire and represent the whole needs of our community, including those who are less advantaged and who would benefit from social housing. This addition just provides that reach and provides us to be shown to be a socially responsible council, to say that we don't oppose, but we want to be engaged in this particular process in future, councillors. It's important that we are. So thanks for putting it up. Sorry that it appears like policy on the run, councillors, but I think it's an important addition to this particular recommendation.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak for? No. Yeah, either or either. So, anyone else wish to speak for? Yeah. Council, yes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I agree with what Councillor Reeves has just said. We're not opposed to having 16 more community houses in our area. Not at all, and I think that's what this amendment does. It asks our CEO to work with the DHHS in regards to attaining that, because our community needs it. So I don't have any issue with the amendment at all. I think it's a terrific amendment, and it ensures that we do our level best to gain the community housing that DHHS does want for us. So happy with the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Toohey. So those who wish to speak against? Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The amendment's a separate issue, and it should be dealt with a separate motion, and it interferes with the planning intent. We're supposed to be dealing directly with the planning matter, not the social issue. And the fact that if you accept this amendment, you're confusing the two issues. And that's my statement on it anyway. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you want that amendment, okay, do it at another time, do it as a separate matter, because it is a separate issue and it interferes with the intent of the recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to acknowledge the wisdom of Councillor Buckley, because this is a standalone amendment. This is legislation on the run. It's a sudden grab. It's not focused, as Councillor Buckley said. I'm not even going to try and repeat the words of Councillor Buckley. This is a standalone social issue. It's something that I've been bringing up on the issue of affordable housing since ever I was a councillor. We do have a need. It's not there. We're not to blur the issues and the problems that are associated with this particular one-off planning application. This is not the place for this amendment. The amendment should be presented by Councillor Rotino as a standalone, formidable, and I'll say that, formidable issue at the next ordinary meeting of council on the 15th of this month, if he's genuinely serious about addressing affordable housing and the social and complex issues associated with providing for people in the social housing sphere. This is not a time to be taking advantage of this. This is just grandstanding, and I'm ashamed that it's come to this stage. Please listen to the smartness of Councillor Buckley. The argument is clear. We all have a social conscience. We all know, and so do the people, the 107 people who signed that petition. They probably all have a social conscience, and they don't want this dragged into a mire over a planning application. Let's have the wider conversation on the inequalities in our community and the challenges being faced by the East Gippsland Shire, in fact our country. I say to you, councillors, pat Councillor Rotino on the back for the idea, but not the timing, and reject this application. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Ellis, thank you. Councillor Peltz, you wish to speak against?
I do adhere what you're saying, Councillor Rotino, and I would have liked to have been able to add to your motion by saying that your part of the motion was that Council requests the Chief Executive Officer to work closely with appropriate members of the Department of Health and Human Services to develop a plan that meets community needs and addresses the broad issue of social housing needs in East Gippsland under the current state planning guidelines, without the specific needs of the minister feeling like they need to put specific control overlays on this particular development. Would have been what I would have gone to. Because I think part of the issue here is the fact that there is the opportunity for the minister to actually come in and override the whole thing. And I think we should be saying we can work through this with Department of Housing to be able to actually address it underneath the current guidelines, is what I'm trying to make the point of. So I think that's a really specific point that could have been put into that amended motion. If you wanted to add that, I'd be happy to put it in. And that's the trouble that we have of these things coming to the table at the last minute. We haven't had the opportunity to discuss or tweak additional amendments or wording that we want to put into these particular recommendations. And I think, you know, along that line, yes, I'm happy to put it in, but I feel like that wording should be added. councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Pelt. So, Councillor Rotino, you have... Should be voting on it. Yes, that's what I was about to say, yes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, for the right of reply. I absolutely reject Councillor Ellis's assumptions that this is some sort of grandstanding. From the king of grandstanding, really, Councillor Ellis? What a joke. This is all about making sure that East Gippsland Shire has a really strong relationship with DHHS and has a seat at the table so that we don't lose this investment in social housing, that we work together collaboratively for the betterment of the whole East Gippsland Shire. Nothing more, nothing less. Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I urge all councillors to support the amendment.
Can I have a point of clarification, please, from our General Manager?
Yeah, I think that's allowable. I thought you were about to speak again. I was about to say no, but a clarification could be accepted.
Can you actually state what is on the table here? Is the original recommendation on the table, or is the amendment on the table?
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Pels, you have an amendment on the table, moved and seconded. So now we should be voting on the amendment, and then, depending on what falls out of that, then the next course of action will proceed.
So does the amendment then get added to the recommendation, and then the recommendation stands with the amendment attached? Is that what you're saying?
So through you, Mr Mayor, if the vote is in favour of the amendment, then the amendment gets added to the 9 other recommendations, and that then becomes a substantive motion. And then you vote again.
So I still have the standing motion, or it's been overridden by...
At the moment, we have an amendment that council needs to vote on. We've had the discussion, we've had a mover and a second, we've had the discussion, the fors and the against, and it's now on the table to vote. Yep.
Thank you. So, we put this to the vote, the amendment to the vote, Councillor Rotino's amendment, seconded by Councillor Reeves. So we put this to the vote. So all those in favour of the amendment? All right, we have 4. Those... Sorry, no, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and Natalie... Oh, sorry, Councillor Peltz. After all that... I see you put your hand up. So those against will be 3.
Did Councillor Peltz just vote for that, Mr Mayor?
She certainly did. If you didn't see that, Councillor Ellis, she did vote for that amendment. So the amendment has passed. So just to let the minute takers know that Councillor Ellis, Councillor Buckley and myself, Mayor, voted against. All the other councillors voted in favour, so that amendment to this item has been passed. So it reverts back now to it's a substantive motion. So now we're back to where we started, with you moving the motion, and I think Councillor Toohey seconding. And
I get to talk to it, don't I?
Go for it, yes.
I'd like to say, look, this is a really big thing for the council staff to go against the Minister for Planning, and it is a really unusual procedure. I think they've done a really great job in supporting the community, and I think the basis of the argument to the Minister and to the Department of Housing is very real, and we would really appreciate that they take it into consideration, because we've done a really good job in dealing with the community who has been quite stressed by this issue. It is not within state policy guidelines now to actually have what they're proposing. So the bottom line is we do not need to be having any kind of ministerial, what are they called, special control overlays placed on us in our region, which puts our community at a disadvantage in the lovely estate of Eastwood, which does have a great neighbourhood character. It's very established, and if the people that came down here and they saw it and they thought there was no neighbourhood character, they did that conveniently for their own reference so that they could sneak this in. It has a very good social neighbourhood character, and it is not in consistency with what they're proposing. So we would like the state government with the Department of Housing to go by the state guidelines of planning and give us developments which are appropriate for where they're being suggested to be put. Like my colleagues here, we all agree that there is need for social housing in our region, not this particular type of development which is inconsistent with the state planning guidelines, and that is all we are saying, and we're saying it very clearly, and we'd like to be respected and recognised for what we are voicing for our community, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peltz. And Councillor Toohey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Took a lot of the words right out of my mouth, I must say, Councillor Peltz. This is a complex issue. As I suggested earlier on, I live in Eastwood Estate, a distance from Glendon Drive, and have taken a lot of phone calls in regards to this issue. I must say, I had one gentleman, George, I didn't get his surname, he's 80 odd. He rang me and asked me what I thought a cluster was. And he referred to a cluster as being 150 odd houses, which was where he lived as a child in a new estate that was done around the bay somewhere down in Melbourne. Had no streets, had no infrastructure at all, but he thought it was the best thing ever. But I must say, he has been the only person that has supported the permits, all the permits that have been applied for here. Having said that, nobody that's spoken to me over this issue, and it would be well over 30 or 40 people that have spoken to me, object to having social housing in our area. And I, for one, certainly don't either. And which is the reason why I voted for the amendment that Councillor Rotino put on the table, because I would like for Council to work with DHHS and ensure that we do get that social housing that we desperately need in our area. The issue, the major issue for all the people that spoke to me, aside from George, was we don't want it all into one street. And that is the sum total of what was proposed. And as I say, aside from one person, every other person that spoke to me said, we don't want it all into one street. So that's the reason why I'm supporting this, the recommendation as put to us by staff who have done a fabulous job, I believe, in dealing with this issue from the community's point of view. And the very reason why council exists is to serve the community. The community has spoken, and I believe we are serving them the way we're meant to. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Toohey. So that leads us to a vote? No? I want my CEO back. Go ahead, Councillor Reeves.
The council speaking in favour. Does Councillor O'Connell wish to speak, I think?
Well, ladies first, if you don't mind. We'll go with, sorry, Natalie, I didn't see you put your hand up.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Reeves. I was waving to get attention, but that's okay. Look, I won't speak for long. I just wanted to endorse the comments made by the previous councillors, especially Councillor Toohey. Really, you took the words right out of my mouth. I too was happy to support that further amendment in point 10, ensuring that relationship with DHS to spread the social housing across the Shire. I think that was the main crux of that there, was that the social housing is critical to our Shire. It just doesn't need to be in the one street. And to acknowledge the work of Nicole and her planning team in getting to this recommendation. I think it recognises and takes into consideration all of the concerns that we have heard through the objectors and the petitioners and through the PCM that we had a few weeks ago. So I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor O'Connell. Now, Councillor Buckley, you wish to speak against?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I just can't bring myself to vote for and against on the same bill. In the same bill we got a couple of issues for, and then we got some issues against. So how can I have a split vote? It just doesn't make logical sense to me, so I'm afraid I won't be able to support any of it, you know, with a positive vote. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Reeves.
Clarification there. Is Councillor Buckley abstaining from this vote? Is that what that means?
Correction, I'll make a correction there. It means I can't support the issue because it's split. It's as simple as that.
So you're voting against the motion?
Yes.
Thank you.
It leaves me no other option.
Thank you for that clarification. Sorry, Councillor Reeves.
Thanks, Mayor. Councillors, thanks so much. Look, councillors, I think it doesn't take much imagination or not even experience to witness poor planning decisions, legacy poor planning decisions, and even more importantly, poor social planning decisions. We've seen them around Melbourne in forms of towers and clusters of developments. They are social housing legacy poor decisions of the 50s and 60s that we're still living with. So this would have been a similar poor planning decision to approve this cluster of developments, and I think it's entirely appropriate, that recommendation. And I'm glad that the councillors can see the sophistication of the recommendation and understand what it's actually doing, and that is approving two and refusing the balance, because that's a planning matter, and that's a sophisticated planning matter. And social housing proposals should not have a detrimental impact on our community based on planning merit. And that's what this particular recommendation does. And I really congratulate the planning officers for the work that they've done to interrogate the planning scheme, to interrogate the statutory regulations to provide this recommendation that we hope gives the protections for our community, but also through that recommendation, the additional recommendation, allows us to reach out to the Department of Health and Human Services to continue the work to rectify the social housing deficit in our community. Thanks, councillors. I look forward to seeing this motion get up.
Thank you. We don't... there he is. Councillor Ellis.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I want to thank Councillor Reeves in particular for his considered assessment of this particular application, and I only just wish that additional episode we've just experienced hadn't occurred, because his very points about social housing and social responsibility and appropriate planning are really to the point of a good community. So I'm happy to support all of that. I have empathy with Councillor Buckley in he being intellectually able to see the division of difficulty with the inclusion of that final amendment. But I have to support the principle of what the planners have provided to us. My concern, of course, is that the Minister will overlook our decision, or perhaps override our decision, probably the better term, and then move ahead and create the cluster we all fear. And that's something that we have to accept. That's why it was so important. That's why I said I would pat Councillor Ricino's back at our next ordinary meeting if he brought the issue of social housing to council as a standalone. We really do need to support that concept. It needs to be separated because we could lose the goodwill, perhaps, if we're to be generous enough to this amendment, that extra amendment. So, coming back to the core of the issue before us tonight, or the recommendation tonight, I stand with Councillor Reeves on this and support the consideration and the considered thought of our planner and Ms Reynolds and her colleagues. I do support the recommendation, but with that angst of that last edition being lost. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. If there's nobody more wishing to speak, you do get to reply. That's correct.
No, he's just talking. Yeah, sure.
That's right. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm in favour of this motion. I'd like to acknowledge the work that's gone into it, because it is a full recommendation, Councillor Buckley, where there are some for and some against, and then some improvements. So it's not just a straightforward approval denial. It's an improved process, and I thank our planning department and particularly Ms Reynolds for the work she's put into this project and coming up with this comprehensive recommendation. And I think the message is quite strong. We don't want to lose the investment of social housing. We want to be at the table with DHHS early in the process to avoid any future conflicts and make sure that we get appropriate development across the Shire. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Councillor Return. And now it gets back to you eventually.
I do. I get the right of reply. Thank you, Mr Mayor and colleagues. With this stated, I concur with all of my colleagues here and believe that our staff should be recommended to, highly recommended for the work that they've done and recognised for their specific wording, the time and the effort that they've put into this, because it isn't an easy thing to do when you know the planning obligations of a community back the front, and then to be asked to not recognise that and to be put in a position where you are actually trying to accommodate what the Department of Housing is wishing to do, but knowing full well that it's not right for your community, and that our region doesn't want a cluster development legacy which is inconsistent to our region. We have a lot of new estates coming up and being now in place, and it may be that these new estates can be entertained for and taking the pressure off this 16 house development that the Department of Housing is actually proposing now, because it would make much better sense to our community if we could work alongside them to accommodate their wishes and appropriately place this kind of development in our region specifically. So with that said, we'd really like to have the Honourable Richard Wynne, the Minister for Planning and Housing in the state. Basically, we'd like him, and we'd like Mr Martin Foley, who is actually the Minister for the Housing and Development, and we'd really like them to hear our words tonight and to specifically be open-eared and respectful. We are happy to play the game in regards to your guidelines of the state that you've put in place for us to follow. And when you come along and you actually say, we want to do this, and you say, oh, we can actually change the guidelines so it fits in, it's inappropriate and it's actually disrespectful. And I actually believe that we don't need this kind of development in our region. Like we've said, we're happy to deal with the issues of housing development in our region. and we are saying, yes, we do want this kind of developed, but not in the format you're proposing to us. And we are happy to work with you to be able to achieve what you need to get what you need to achieve. But please work with our officers, work with our CEO, work with our staff, but don't put our community in a disadvantaged position. There's no need for cluster developments in our region when we have such a beautiful area and we have great... our Eastwood estate is one of our iconic estates in the region, and for you to come along and do that is actually just not appropriate at all. So please hear what we're saying, and please do not push your guidelines of being able to put in, what was the wording? Specific control overlays to be able to achieve what you think you want to achieve, because it's not acceptable to us as a council nor as a community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peltz. We've gone past that. That was Councillor Peltz's right of reply.
Oh, this is just another very brief point of order. I can't vote yes and no at the one time, so I'll have to abstain. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. So, councillors, we've finally gone round the table 3 times, maybe 3.5, and I think it's time that we put this to the vote. So, councillors, all those in favour of the recommendation? All right, so that is, it is unanimous in that Councillor Buckley has abstained from voting. So, I can take that it may be minuted as a no. But that's where we have landed. So, yes. Yes, so... That's fine. We have a free voting in this chamber, so that's your decision, and you can stand by that, and nobody will object to that. So 5.2.1, and we have had officers waiting patiently. I see them on the screen. For this, this is our regional and district events sponsorship.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just going to step out now.
Yeah, that's right. I was just going to get to that, Councillor O'Connell, our third, and who you will leave for this section of the meeting. And could IT please inform our CEO, Mr. Basford, that... oh, gee, he must have been listening to us finish. Welcome back, Anthony. They were very quick to get you. They were very quick to get you back.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No, and Councillor O'Connell has left because of her declaring a conflict to do with this, the RAIDS sponsorship. So this is round 2. Well, we'll let the officers explain this, but it is complicated now, as with what bushfires and COVID have done to this this sponsorship. But so it's round 2 of 2019-2020, and round 1 of 2020 and 2021. So it's I guess Sharon. Ragus, are you going to speak to this, or support Jeanette Senior in this, in talking to us on this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Yes, just confirming that I'll be speaking to this. Jeanette, who has authored this paper, is on call for any technical questions that councillors might have. So good evening, everybody. We are very pleased to present and put forward to Council's consideration tonight the funding recommendations of the Regional and District Event Sponsorship Program, or RAIDS for short. As you've described, for round 2 of last financial year and round 1 of this current financial year, they have been presented here together due to some of the disruptions caused by the COVID-19 situation. Just to recap, the purpose of the RAIDS funding program is to facilitate the attraction and enhancement of events held in the East Gippsland Shire. Funding for the RAISE program has a focus on stimulating those direct and indirect benefits to East Gippsland and attracting visitors from around Victoria, interstate and also internationally into East Gippsland and adding value to our destination marketing opportunities and existing destination marketing campaign activity. The report presented tonight covers the assessments, recommendations of the assessment panel for the event applications for both rounds. Round 2 of last financial year received 14 applications and round 1 of this financial year 6 applications. Fair to say that whilst the immediate future of hosting events is still a little uncertain given the current COVID-19 environment, it is recognised that they will play an essential role in attracting visitors back to East Gippsland when it's once again safe to do so. Allocation of funding as recommended to you in this report provides our event organisers with confidence for planning in the current situation regardless. And has been made with a particular focus given to those events which meet the criteria of assessment and are timed in particular for those low and those shoulder and low season periods of the year where we experience some gaps in our event calendar. It is acknowledged that the proposed event timing may still require some rescheduling in the ongoing response to COVID-19 social distancing restrictions that may be continue to be outlined by the state, and our officers will work with the event proponents to accommodate that and deliver still within schedules. With this said, I'd like to present the recommendations for funding outlined in this report, and if I can, please take the report as read by Council and open up to any questions that councillors might have in relation to these recommendations. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that, Sharon. We have some questions lined up. We'll go first with Councillor Peltz. Again, Councillor Buckley. Ladies first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may, I was just curious. A number of the events have been cancelled, and they have actually been recognised as receiving funding. So I'm curious as to what's happened to that funding. But I'm also curious as to whether we've been able to accommodate some of the other events with any bushfire recovery money, and whether that's been something we've been able to leverage for the scheduled events calendar. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Peltz. In relation to the first part of your question, we had experienced some delays and rescheduling of events. Most of the events that had been previously funded under RAIDS programs have rescheduled, and so the monies hadn't been returned. We merely delayed the scheduling of those events, and in some cases they've been delayed a couple of times. Where there has been, where the event organisers have confirmed they are unable to run those events, those monies have been returned to Council and have been considered, and that money returned into our budgets. In relation to leveraging external funding under bushfire recovery, yes, I can tell you that our event officers and our team more broadly are keeping a very close eye on those opportunities for supporting, in particular, new event acquisition and leveraging those funds both from state and the Commonwealth as well. And it's a little premature for me to say, but we've got some good results there to share with Council at a later time.
Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. How do I read this thing? We've got A at the top here on paragraph 2 with $10,000 to East Gippsland Marketing, East Gippsland Water Festival. We go to the next one and it's the same thing. There's several like that. How does that work out?
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Buckley. I'll have Jeanette on standby, but what I can share with you is that the RAIDS funding program allows the opportunity for event organisers to be funded over multiple years. So, you know, this financial year, next financial year and the following financial year. And in some cases, when event organisers apply for funding under our RAIDS program, they request for multiple years up front. And so that is taken into consideration. But the recommendations that we make to Council in this report outline very clearly, hopefully, very clearly the amounts per event per year, if that makes sense. So where there is an event that has been funded for multiple years, you'll see them listed in the recommendations for endorsement under those multiple years.
All right,
is that clear?
Well, not quite, because it says the same date. It's the 2019-20 RADS program, and we go up to the top, and it's the same 2019/2020 program.
If I may, Councillor Buckley, if I just step through, recommendation 2 relates to funding from the 2021 financial year. Recommendation 3 relates to funding from the 21-22 financial year, and recommendation 4, the 22-23 financial year, and that's the 3 years of funding for people who applied for funding in the 19-20 second round. So those 3 recommendations step through sequentially for each financial year, and then recommendations 5, 6 and 7 do the same sequentially for those 3 financial years, with the successful applicants out of the first round of this year's RAIDS funding. So that's how the report is structured, and that's why you see some of the applicants appearing under multiple recommendations.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you. And just a comment, it seems an awful lot of money to brewing beer, the sailor's grave. I'd better buy some of that sort of stuff. It could be pretty good.
If I may, Mr Mayor, it might be more easier for Councillor Buckley to review the attachment, and he doesn't actually have a copy of the attachment because he actually only gets the papers and doesn't get the additionals. So I would be highlighting that as an issue for other councillors coming online in the new council, that they should be receiving all parts of the council notes, not just the main part of it, but they should be receiving all attachments as well, so that they are well read and they can address and see easily what staff is trying to adhere to.
That's a good point.
Hug a tree. Hug a tree.
Don't worry about it. Thank you,
Well, I'm stressed for you.
Okay. All right. Were there any other questions for the officers with regards to the funding? Okay. Well, after all that, you seconded it. Good on you, Ben. So it's moved by Councillor Toohey and seconded by Councillor Buckley. So would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to say that this is money that we really do need to spend to try and get events back up and running in our area. Tourism is a critical part of what we do, and supporting tourism is what council should be doing. So I think this is a good outcome. Thank you.
Councillor Buckley?
No.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak? Yeah, Councillor Rotino, thank you.
Just to support Councillor Toohey in his comments there, it is very important that we get this money out, and when post-COVID-19 that we start creating that activity to get the visitor economy up and running again. I mean, we have felt the pain of everything that's happened to this region, and really have seen how reliant we are actually on the visitor economy. So I totally support this program. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Rotino. You wish to reply, Councillor Toohey? happy. All right, councillors, so for this 5.2.1, all those in favour? Thank you, councillors. That is unanimous. And if IT could please let Councillor O'Connell know that we've finished that and can move on then to 5.3.1 when she comes back.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Good, Councillor O'Connell, you're back. You can hear us, okay?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. So 5.3.1, this is our drone policy review, and we have Philip Philippou here, and also I think Simone Spikers. So who would begin? Oh, sorry, Mr. Cannizzaro, you'd like to override the other two and...
Yeah, look, I'll just do the intro, Mr. Mayor, and so before you is item 5.3.1, drone policy review. Each year we do a review of this policy and we bring this to council for a formal resolution. You will note that the revisions that we've made to this policy review have been very administrative in nature in terms of updating position titles within the policy, and also some other administrative housekeeping tasks such as removing defunct pieces of legislation and updating relevant pieces of legislation to incorporate things like the Local Government Act 2020, which was passed and implemented in April 2020 this year. So before you, as I said, it's a review with minor administrative changes and a set of recommendations, councillors, to adopt the revised drone policy, and also a second recommendation to authorise the Chief Executive Officer to amend the adopted policy without any resolution, provided that the amendments are very administrative in nature. And you'll see that you have a copy of the marked up version of the policy, and as evidence, all of those are very administrative and housekeeping tasks that officers will perform on a regular yearly basis. So I have both Phil Philippou and Simone Spikers here as well. If there are any technical questions, they're more than happy to respond. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Looking at the screen, nobody with a question?
I'm happy to move it, Mayor.
Okay. Sorry, you do have a question.
I do have a question, please, if I may. I know originally this policy was probably instrumental in drone policies in the state originally, and it was recommended and highlighted by CASA as being a best practice and in accordance recommendation of governance guidelines. And I was just curious whether the amendments have been endorsed as well in such a manner as what was originally the work of Ms Marianne Bennett, I believe, if I remember correctly, some 3 years ago now, I would think. Anyway, I was just curious as to whether that's been endorsed or whether it's been read by CASA or presented to them.
Thanks, Councillor Pals. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I might defer to Simone Spikers. I don't have that information. Simone?
Yes, so thank you, Councillor Pals. Everything that we have in the drone policy, it runs parallel with CASA's regulations. So absolutely, if Marianne at the time suggested that we make a change, then it would have been in alliance with CASA's requirements.
So is that to presume that Ms Bennett's been working on this in the background? Is that what you're saying? No?
Sorry, no, not since our new General Manager has come on board. Sorry, Marianne did help out initially, but then when our new General Manager, Peter, came on board, the role changed and we with CASA, we replaced Marianne's name with Peter's, and now Peter's going with the drone program.
So in answering my question, has it been ran past CASA or not, is what I'm asking.
Absolutely, yes, for sure.
But also congratulate Councillor Peltz on such a very good memory.
I have a memory like an elephant.
Well done. So if there were no more questions...
I'm happy to second Councillor Reeves' motion, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. I was just about to announce that Councillor Reeves had moved and now seconded by Councillor Ellis. So Councillor Reeves, you'd like to speak to this, please?
Well, I would have whimsically said something about Miss Bennett working as a nom de plume in the background, but I'm glad that our contemporary managers are doing the work. Councillors, just to build on Councillor Peltz's comments, it's only 3 years, May 2017, that this drone policy was adopted, and how quickly technology changes and how quickly the world changes, where drones and the use of drones for a whole range of services and enhancing our council have changed. Yeah, that's right. You don't have to get up in the plane anymore. You can stay on the ground where it's safe. You don't have to allegedly fly under any bridges anymore. But it's just amazing, and I think it says a lot about our council, that how quickly we've adopted and adapted to this technology and use it so effectively. And yeah, it is procedural, just a few name changes here and there, and I think that also does speak to the validity of the original policy. So well done.
How about yourself, Councillor Ellis? Would you like to say?
No, Councillor Reeves has eloquently handled the situation. The introduction of this new technology has saved the use of so many cherry pickers and different things. It's just a bonus all the way through. Thank you.
Councillor Rotino.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves and Councillor Ellis. I would endorse your comments, but particularly acknowledge Simone Spikers as well as taking the lead on the operational side of the drone. But the significant amount of money that drone operation has saved the community shouldn't be undervalued, because it's been significant, and there's also the opportunities now to participate in undertaking high-risk observations like disasters that we've experienced, and get some really good reconnaissance early. So I think this type of technology for a region like ours is not only necessary, but will return dividends all the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rotino. Councillor Reeves, you happy to put this to the vote?
Let's do it.
Yes, okay. So all those in favour of accepting this review? Thank you, councillors. That is unanimous. Now, just item 6 is for urgent and other business. I'm not aware of any, Mr CEO. Has that anything come forward?
Not to my knowledge, Mr Mayor.
Well, thank you. And confidential business here, item 7 is listed in my agenda as nil. So I think I can. It's 8 p.m. So I declare the meeting closed. Thank you, officers and participants and councillors. Thank you very much.